theirs.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I get 3 places. But
Gotcha. Yeah, so this is episode 1, I guess. And I couldn't think of anybody else to start with. And the big reason is because you're the person I know personally that has done everything.
Yeah.
But we don't need to jump straight to
Yeah.
third base. But so how old are you right now?
43.
43. I always forget because you're so young. Like,
Yeah.
because you look young, you act young.
Yeah.
Not immature, young.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's hard for me to realize some days too. Like 43, man, that's like half a lifetime.
well, I guess on the pessimistic side, I guess I always think 50's halfway, but I guess not that many people live to 100.
Well, I think growing up we were trained to think, I don't know if the life expectancies and
And I was like, oh,
meteor shower.
yeah.
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 Last night was supposed to be peak. Last night early this morning, and I tried to catch some of it, but it didn't work out so well. I was kind of flying solo toddler duty with church last night, and then they were practicing for the Christmas program, and so yeah, I got home a little later. But yeah, speaking of like this morning things, I get up. Obviously, clearly it's dark out. It's early, and I walk down the steps around my car to get in, and for some reason I paused a second because I heard a rustle, and I look over, and this giant buck standing by my chicken coop, which was like 30 feet from my car, and then takes off running. So I was like, scramble, get flashlight out, camera, try to get a picture. It didn't work out so well. So as I'm like intently focused on this buck as he's creeping to the wood line and I'm losing him, cat comes out of the garage behind me.
Oh.
Like, rustle, rustle, rustle. What do we got going on this morning?
Oh, man.
Under siege by wildlife.
How many people do we know that instead of grabbing their phone, they would have grabbed their gun?
Yeah.
They would have flashlight gun or gun on their flashlight, I guess.
True, because I do have bobcats on my camera. I've had quite a few coyotes lately. Fox the other night. Fox come up to the house in broad daylight and chase my chickens.
I should see if my fox fur is done. I haven't asked about that.
You get a good fox fur.
Well, I mean, it's got a few holes in it. That's for sure. But
They'll patch them up.
I hope so. But, okay, so 43 years young.
Yeah, 1980 model.
I don't actually even know. Where were you born?
I think...
You think?
Well, because I don't think I was born in the town I lived in, because I was in a little bitty town.
Sure.
So the hospital. I think the hospital was Sauk City, but I grew up like Mazomanie, Black Earth area, which is about like 20 minutes west of Madison.
I was going to say, I've driven through Black Earth. Like, I remember seeing signs for Black Earth.
Yeah. It used to all be like separate towns, and now it's like all merged together because Madison just keeps going further west.
Sure.
But that's where I spent like all through high school in that area. So the school district was called Wisconsin Heights. So it was a culmination of like 3 little towns.
Gotcha.
So it was just,
I didn't know you grew up like... So 3 little towns, it was a small town feel?
Yeah, for sure.
Even though you're near... Mm-hmm. Although Madison has a weird feel to it.
Yeah. Well,
I've driven through Madison and I'm like, this doesn't feel like the bigger town that it is. Or city, I guess city.
And it's way different now than growing up. I mean, in high school, I'd spend quite a bit of time on the west side in the mall and stuff, and now I, like, nah.
Well, yeah,
I take my kids to the zoo, and then we get out.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of nostalgic. But
yeah,
it was definitely rural. Like, the actual town that I was in had 1,200 people.
Oh, wow.
The whole school was like 320, I think. So it was small. I think my class was around 72.
So then, in that small town, you guys grew up on a decent plot of land, didn't you?
Not when I was younger.
Oh, okay.
We didn't. So we always had horses. My dad and grandpa had pulling ponies, which a lot of people know are big horses, but they're technically a Welsh Belgian cross, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're real stocky, and they're a lot bulkier now than they were when I was a kid, but they'll have a 52-inch pony at the withers weighing 1,350 pounds. It looks like a rhino.
Yeah.
A short
Oh,
rhino.
for real.
But yeah, growing up didn't much have land. We lived mostly in town, and then we would rent a barn out in the country, and that's where we'd have the horses as we go every day to chore horses, work horses, ponies, whichever. Yeah, so
You
it was
went
mostly in
where?
town. We rented a barn
Gotcha.
and farm.
How far was that from?
It was 3 or 4 miles outside of town.
Oh, so not far.
No,
No.
no, same town, just out in the country.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but it was apartment. It was
And that was since you were little.
mhm.
When did you... So wait, that Welsh, what did you say?
Welsh Belgian cross. So Belgian's like your typical, like what you'd see like an Amish workhorse.
Oh, okay.
Kind of the blonde colored,
Sure.
typical draft horse that you see.
Okay.
Not the Clydesdales, which is
No.
synonymous with Budweiser. But
Right.
yeah, and then they cross them with a Welsh, a little Welsh pony. Yeah. I don't get the logistics of that.
I was gonna say.
We didn't do any breeding ever. We just bought. We'd buy young horses, colts. My dad was a super good horseman and trainer, and he'd like to buy young horses and work them. The team that he actually later in life won the national title with was just a young horse that he had started, and he paired up with a mare that he had that was pretty seasoned. They went up and won the national title with them. So yeah, they'd go to Oklahoma City when I was real little. I never got to go, but my dad and my grandpa would go. And that was in like the mid to late 80s, and they considered that the world's championship.
Yeah.
And my dad.
Is that the video you've shown me?
I don't think that's the one. I have videotapes from there after my grandpa passed away. I was trying to get them in my possession, and my aunt or my dad has them, but I have videos from down there. The synonymous one is, if that's the right word, not synonymous, the infamous one.
Yep.
My grandpa was pulling a team and just whipping everybody, and he gets to one of the last hooks, and as he steps onto the sled and gives his team the cue to go ahead, he lost his footing somehow, and he fell down, and when the chains come back from the tugs of the horse to the evener, and the evener hooks to the boat, a sled, he fell down and was laying on top of that. He had to call his team off.
Oh.
He ended up getting second because he had to call his team off.
Oh.
They were sailing it across. They would have full pulled that last load and won the whole contest. He'd have had a two-time world champ, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a video of him falling down.
Jeez. But that's got to be scary. If you don't call a team off there, what happens? You dead?
Well, either you're going to get really lucky and you're going to ride there for the duration of the pull. This not long. It's like 14 foot. But,
yeah, but it's long when you're down there.
You're going to go under, and you're going to have, 5,500 pounds on you. Going under the sled. So
They better get it off quick then. So that's just what you grew up. I mean, like, when did you start? No, the first question I was going to ask was, so then the ponies you just had or still have? No.
I don't, not right now. I
Right.
did the last couple of years.
What were they? Were
Those
they
the
Welsh?
same. Welsh Belgian cross.
Okay.
Mostly. That was
Gotcha.
that was a pair of sisters, and not to jump ahead too far, but that was a pair of sisters that my dad raised from just weanlings. They were 1 year apart, full sisters, and they were stellar. He had them with a buddy of his out in Ohio, and they're in the middle class. So right now, typically they have a 49-inch, a 51-inch, and a 53-inch class, and they're in the middle class. And they were getting on more weight than the big class was.
Jeez.
They were outstanding. And then he had a bay filly out of the one mare. He had a filly out of that mare and a colt out of the other one, but the colt didn't make it.
Oh.
So the filly did, and the filly was with the two mares at my place for a while. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
the bay-colored filly.
The ones you sent me pictures of.
Mm-hmm.
Big old.
And now
ones.
she's
They're
out.
big, thick.
Yeah.
Triple C.
We got them. Well, the alley mare was down on weight because the friend that my dad had him with initially didn't wean her off, so she was still nursing at a year old, and really drew Mama down. So, but we got her. You've seen pictures. We got her bulked back up, and yeah, now they are in Canada. Eh?
Nice.
Fair Mares will be pulling up there, winning up there, and the Bay Phillies out in Ohio at what? The Bay Phillies out in Ohio at a friend of my dad's who actually helped him get the mares going because my dad had his stroke 6-7 years ago. So then he couldn't do as much as he could. Still gets around well, but couldn't really train like he used to. So
Yeah.
he got a really good friend in Ohio that starts horses really well. So now I've been getting videos of her going, and she's just muscling up, and she's wanting it. You can tell her attitude when he's got her hooked on a load, like it's ears back, it's butt down, and it's
Drive.
She's gonna be really good. He's got her started with her half brother, who's from out in Ohio, and he looks identical match to her, and they call him Trump. So he's a pretty good. They're pretty.
He's making Poland great again.
Yeah, he's making Poland great again for sure. So,
Oh,
but yeah, it was always the ponies growing up, even though we lived in town. But it was a lot of town stuff for me too. Sports, get into a lot of sports because everything was close. I could ride my bike a half mile down to the ball field, play little league, whichever.
because you were more of a baseball guy.
Baseball was my love. I played 4 sports: baseball, football, wrestling, and track.
Oh,
Baseball was my love.
I don't think I knew about track or wrestling.
Yeah, the track was, I don't know, because at that time you could play 2 sports in the same season. You just had to declare.
Yeah.
So I was declared baseball. So basically on the track, I'd show up to meets and run.
Gotcha. That's kind of what happened to me. Was it senior year? They wanted me to run track, but I wanted to play golf. And they tried to get me to do 2 at the same time, and it was not working.
Yeah.
Because that required me to run on my own time.
Yeah. Well,
That
you were a
was
distance runner.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and I ran the 1, the 2, and the 4x1. So it was show up and run. It wasn't. I mean, I could have trained and done better, but I was like, if you want me to run track and I can just show up and run, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll do that. But if there's going to be more than.
Well, that was the stupid thing too for me was our track team, our long distance runners, like all quit or failed, so then they couldn't run. So that was the year. That was my last year doing track because I was like, I hate this. I did cross country and track, so I was putting on miles. And track, I had to every meet, I had to race the 1 mile, the 2 mile, the half mile, and then the 4x800.
No thanks.
I had to race that every time. 4 events, long distance. It was stupid.
Nah.
I just was like, this is dumb. They would make like the 400-meter guys, quarter mile guys run the 800, the relay where you run 800, hand it off, run 800.
Yeah.
They made the quarter mile guys run that, and it's like they're wasting their time too. They don't know how to run an 800, and I don't like running an 800, so
I would totally gas myself in the first 200, and that'd be it.
Yeah, it was dumb. But okay, so sports. Well, have you ever asked your dad why did he get into pulling ponies when there's no money?
Well, it's just love of it.
Sure.
My grandpa did it, so he grew up doing it. And, and it was just kind of, it goes back to the olden days. So my dad's grandpa used horses to farm with.
Right.
Yeah. And then it started out with, the farmers would get together every so often and kind of have their own little competition to see whose horses were stronger.
Like the rodeo.
Yeah. And it evolved from there. Yeah, just the way the rodeo evolved from like real ranch life.
Yeah.
It evolved from there, and then there started being contests, and there's an old boy that passed away 2 years ago, I think, Otis DeWitt from the Ontario area. He kind of put together a club over there called Wildcat Teamsters. And so they all got into that. My grandpa was really good friends with him. So they got into that. But it was, my dad was a young man at the time. When I was born, my dad was only 17.
Oh.
So, yeah. So he's like in his very early 20s. And that was his hobby with his dad. So he was still like a young dude yet.
And his dad was around, obviously, when he was doing that.
Yeah.
So you're doing something with your dad.
Yeah.
And to clarify, me asking that question wasn't like it was a waste of time. It's just that when you think horses, they are a good hobby. and they're a good way to burn money.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there are some hobbies with horses that pay a lot.
Yeah.
There's
Pulting's
some
not one of them.
no, and that's why I worded the question the
Yeah,
way that I
yeah.
did. Because when you think if I chose to get into horses, I would one love horses. They're awesome. I don't know a ton about them, not super familiar with them. But if I was to choose to try to get a hobby in horses, I would try to make sure that the hobby is one that I could make money with.
Mhm.
Even if I never do, I would just want to make sure that I picked something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had a successful breeding program, I know like hunter jumper English horses, they got a pile of money in them. My dad actually was a horse trader. Just
Right.
what you
Which we're
call it.
getting to.
Yeah.
Don't jump too far
Yeah.
ahead, but
So there was always horses around. But the funny caveat to that is I've been allergic to horses my entire life. Yeah.
what?
Yeah, so like this
What?
last few years when I had my dad's horses at my place,
Yeah.
I bring them in every day to grain them,
Yeah,
feed
yeah,
them, check
yeah.
them over, brush them,
Uh-huh.
stuff. I put on a mask because I just couldn't.
I thought masks didn't work, Bill. No, just kidding.
Well, for dust particles off horses, they do. So I always had an N95 hanging there, and if I just brought them in to feed them ham, not a big deal.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna brush them,
Right, you're kicking up
things
stuff
like
and all that.
Yeah, it's the dander within the fur. It does
So-
it. So my whole life.
When did your dad okay, so he's doing pulling ponies. You're part of that, but you're playing sports, but you're doing chores and doing all that. When did it get to trading? When did he jump into trading? And was there something in between that? Or did he kind of go from pulling to trading? But while he was trading, he was probably still pulling.
Yeah, as far as the horses go, he had always had regular jobs
Yeah.
until he became a horse trader, and then he was employed by himself.
Right.
He quit pulling horses, ponies when my little brother Jared was born, and that was in 1992.
He stopped pulling?
He stopped pulling
Okay.
for like 8 years, 10 years, and then he got back into pulling a little bit.
But was he trading before that?
Nope, he started trading probably
94.
95.
I was born in 94, so I was just guessing.
Yeah, somewhere in there I was, no, it was later than that, sorry. 98, 99.
Somewhere in there. Okay.
Somewhere in there, because I was just out of high school.
Gotcha.
And
Because, yeah, you would end up helping train horses, break them.
Yeah. Started a lot of colts for them, things like that. I think I initially moved out of home when I was 20. And the expectation was you're home, you're helping.
Sure.
You're just your daily chores, but also the horse business. you
Yeah.
know? So it was me and my brother, my brother Justin, actually went and trained under, if anybody's familiar with that kind of thing, with Clinton Anderson, who came from Australia and is probably one of the world's biggest horse trainers. Has his own TV show, all that stuff. My brother went and apprenticed under him. Clinton had a place in Ohio, and then he started doing. He's had a kind of pretty fascinating life. He was doing that, but he originally went, not to get too sidetracked, but he went out to California to Pacific Coast Horseshoeing School. And one of his cool things out there is they got to go to the San Diego Zoo and trim the feet of a rhino. Knocked him out, laid him down, trim the feet.
You ain't doing that.
Then he got into auctioneer school. Right? And then he...
What is with... this is your brother?
Yeah.
What is with the Millard guys, the Millard boys, just doing everything?
Well, so he did that, and then he apprenticed under Clinton Anderson, so he's doing horse clinics and all that. And now he's a nurse. Right? Nurse and esthetician, I think. So he's
you guys are a different breed, for sure.
Well, I think a lady got him into the nursing thing. So
women will get you into everything.
So yeah, Dad had a horse business. We were training colts for him. A lot of it was sale barn stuff, and you just be all over. We'd go to a place called Waukon, Iowa, on Friday nights. Take whatever horses we had for that sale, and you figure out which horses are going to work for which sale, because there's different types of people go to different sales.
Sure.
So you take what you had there, and you may buy one or two out of that sale barn, you'd get home 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, put horses up for the night, get up at 6, 7 o'clock, get some chores done, load up, head for southeast Iowa, Maquoketa, Iowa for that Saturday sale, or Pecatonica, Illinois, different places.
Yep.
Then, you'd run that route, you'd get home 2, 3 in the morning on Sunday, and then luckily there's no Sunday sales for the most part. And then during the week it's chores, and then Sunday was typically spent, okay, I bought 4 horses over the weekend, now I got to test them. Now I'm going to be crash test dummy.
How'd that go?
Are they as broke as that? Well, I got some titanium in this body.
Is that the only time that you got broke and the horse didn't?
No. I got bucked off a horse in Waukon, Iowa, in the alley, which are all cement alleys. So my dad said, "Jump up, see if this mare rides." And yeah,
so is that normal? Is that normal? Right here, right now, jump up there and
sometimes.
Okay.
She said a halter and lead rope, no bridle, no saddle. He said, "Throw yourself up there to see if she walks off." And at that time, at that age, even on a tall horse, I'd swing up there, without a leg up, without whatever. You just grab a handful of mane and and you're on. And as soon as I hit the middle of her back, she come up in the air, jumped ahead, threw me out the back door. I landed like this, broke my wrist.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So there's a story in your life that I've heard once, but I want to hear it again, but I don't want to jump ahead. When was it in Appaloosa?
We talking the Banshee on the Run for
a
while? That was
when was that? Is that after this events that we're talking about?
Yeah, a couple years.
Okay.
Not too far after.
All right. So
years.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Because I got to hear that story.
Good looking strawberry roan, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't an Appaloosa? No. You bought an Appaloosa for somebody once.
We had,
or was it not an Appaloosa? It was.
I mostly learned to ride on an Appaloosa horse. It was technically a POA, Ponies of America.
Right.
A leopard Appaloosa. Her name was Dolly. She's probably lived to be 30 years old, which is unheard of. But anybody in my family learned how to ride on that horse.
Jeez, there's somebody I know around here that has horses, and if my memory serves me correctly, I did the math on one of their stalls. They had the name of their horse and the date born or foaled.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right word?
Same.
Okay.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure, and then it had the death, when the horse died. Pretty sure it was like 34 years old.
That's pretty crazy.
It's wild, but they took care of their horse. I mean, they
usually if they hit that
care of their horses.
20-year-old mark, pretty good.
That's like Dale Brisby always talks about his horse. I think his current horse is 23, 24.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, that's his horse.
Yeah.
But, okay, so bucked off. When did Titanium come in?
Oh.
Is that before Banshee on the Run or after?
That was... Man, now you're making me think here.
Yeah.
That was after.
After Banshee on the Run?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I want to keep some semblance of order here. So when you're trading horses, were you keeping any for yourself?
No.
It was all just flipping.
I never owned a good horse on my own until I was mid-20s.
I'm just kidding. Who owned Dolly?
My dad.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And she was just a family horse.
Gotcha. So when did she come in?
Probably... my dad started a riding stable at one point. And it was just in a barn we owned outside of Sauk City. So that
when did that start?
That would have been like 99.
So that was right around when he started trading.
Yeah. Yeah, because he was doing kind of both. That's how he ended up with a lot of the horses. He ended up for this riding stable. And we just kind of
would buy sale barn horses.
And then I would test them out.
And then if they
would
were...
be for the general public.
Oh.
Yeah, and we acquired some good horses that way. That Dolly horse came kind of that way. We had a big draft cross mare, and I think we called her Peach.
Mm.
And I always remember her because my dad had a friend from Madison that would come and trim feet.
Mm.
We never put shoes on anything for the riding stable. Shoes only went on later in life when I started roping and had good horses that way. But So this is big draft cross. I think we called her Peach. Could be wrong, but I think so. After a few hundred horses, sometimes you forget names.
Sure. Yep. I'm sure.
He's trimming her feet. My dad's standing in front of her holding her. And this guy's name's Jeff. And a lot of times these shoers will have a stand. And it's just a pedestal with a spot where they can bring a foot up and set it on. So they're not holding that foot the whole time.
Yeah, that.
You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rasp
where
or
they
whatever.
bring it. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so set up on the stand, and I don't know what happened. Something irritated her. My dad's standing in front of her holding her, and she pulls her, goes to pull her foot off the stand, and she kicks it forward. Right in the old junko.
Oh.
Drops him. I see Dad go down. I was like, what the heck is
Oh.
going on? So I always remember that.
Oh.
I always remember the riding stable for that, and then as soon as we opened it, we had more riders show up in one group that wanted to ride together than we had horses for. So I led that first ride on foot through the woods, walking away. It's we had like a 2-mile loop. And so
That stuff doesn't make money anymore, does it?
I don't know much about it anymore.
Because there used to be a M&M Ranch is what they called it. It's a stable barn, whatever, down the way, just down interstate. You could see it off the interstate. They have horses now, but I'm guessing somebody private bought it. Because my sister used to work there with an Amish dude named Emery.
Is that where they got it? They got kind of the sawmill behind that. You talking like old kind of...
When you're going down the interstate heading to La Crosse on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah, they were running some horse sales out there for a little while too.
Were they?
Yeah.
So yeah, it used to be you go there and ride.
Yeah.
Because I remember we went there once because Jessica worked there, and we went there once, and you probably heard me tell this story. My dad, who's pretty familiar with horses, he owned a few horses in his time. He knows what he's doing. I think he would, if he got horses again, he'd ride them, but mostly for pasture pet.
Yeah.
It's just cool to have horses, and take care of them. And my dad's a big animal person in general. Dogs, whatever. But he knows what he's doing. Well, they tack up the horses. What I've heard, though, is if you're a cowboy, you check your own stuff.
You better every time because I've been underneath a horse out in... No, that was in Illinois. Laying in the gravel because I didn't follow the golden rule. Somebody else tacked this horse up. It was at a sale, I think, in Pecatonic, Illinois. And I lead her away from the trailer and go stick my foot in the stirrup. And as I'm swinging my other leg over, the saddle just rolls at me. And so the cinch wasn't tight. And I didn't check it. And I ended up in the gravel. The saddle was under the horse, which irritated. This horse walking all the way across the parking lot.
Yep.
So I got to pick myself up, get the gravel out of my knees and elbows, and then go chase down this horse. So yeah, that was my one time of my one reminder of you always check your stuff.
Well, I remember this place, they're telling us not to mess with anything. Which, if you don't have somebody who knows what they're doing, I could understand why you would say that. But if somebody comes in and says, I'm familiar with horses, I know horses, I guess I can understand
Those rules are
their
for
part.
the people that show up in shorts and flip-flops to ride.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my dad's they said don't mess with it, and they were they were really harping on it. He gets up there, and I think we only went down the trail part of the way, and he ends up sliding up. Now, I think he kind of got himself off so he didn't end up under the horse. Yeah. But saddle just went right, and my dad was so mad. I remember him being so mad. Because it's because Jessica didn't tack up the horses. If Jessica, well, who knows? You don't know for sure, right? I guess when you're tacking up a horse for somebody else, or you just throw everything on. But I would guess that Jessica would have made sure. Yeah. But it is real finicky tacking up a horse, from what I've learned, is when you're undoing stuff, you're not supposed to undo that thing right away. No. Because you could cause a blood vessel something.
I don't know that I'm familiar with that. Or heard of that.
People that I was learning from, cinched it up decently tight. I mean, you want to stay on a horse. Yeah. But then when they bring them in, they loosen it, but they don't just take it off right away, because then the blood, if you had it so tight that blood flow it can cause some problem with.
That very well could be. And
I have
there's
no
an
idea.
order. Then there's an order too. And usually your main cinch, your front cinch, is what you want to undo last. If you're riding with a back cinch and a breast collar, because the last thing you undo your main cinch, and you're basically, if something happens, horse spooks or whatever, jumps ahead, and now that saddle can flip off, roll under. You're attached by the breast collar or the back cinch, and that's your main cinch. So that saddle's going to be under that horse, which is never a good thing.
No.
Yet it's going to be attached at one end or the other. So
Sure.
it's not going to fall completely off. So that causes a whole
Yeah.
new wreck. But yeah, with horses, if you have them long enough, you're going to get hurt. It's just
It's a matter.
And I've been,
time.
and I rodeoed for quite a few years.
Right, which we're getting to.
Fight
When did you,
wolves.
so that was going to be my question. Was
About the
during
same
this
time.
horse trading thing, did you have another job or was it just working for your dad?
No, I had a full-time job.
What was your full-time job at that time? Was that
I think I was
cleaning?
just getting into the lumber industry.
Oh.
Cleaning was before that. Cleaning was like 17. That was like the painting, cleaning, the bad cleaning.
The bad cleaning?
Yeah, that guy's actually it mostly was a painting service, and he cleaned carpets.
How do you end up painting and cleaning Oh, you spill, so you got to clean the carpet?
I don't know. That was his business. So he had like commercial carpet cleaners. It was just I don't want to say a one-man show because he had another employee, just an older gentleman from the Sauk area, and kind of had that. But that was like, it's probably 17 then.
So what I'm alluding to is a story I've obviously heard is a guy decided to take his own life.
Yeah.
And not pleasantly.
Right.
You know,
And I didn't
trigger warning.
Yeah.
No, but
and I didn't know it at the time, but this guy I was working for, he contracted with insurance companies to do that kind of cleanup.
yeah.
So
well,
most
you can make a lot doing that.
Yeah.
Which I mean, it's
But you gotta
it's
see
morbid, but it's part of life. Okay, let's understand this. It's part of life. We're not trying to be morbid, but when somebody dies in a home, whether it's take their own life or dies another way, usually, if there's a mess, do you really want to be the one cleaning up after somebody you know? So no, you hire it out.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of that is insurance type stuff. I don't know if it's life insurance, homeowner insurance, or whatever. But yeah, so for a couple months in the summertime, I was painting houses for him. We're repainting college housing down in Madison.
Meanwhile, you're also helping your dad.
Yeah. Oh, that was yeah.
You're right. Yeah. You're working
you were
this
always
job,
helping
and
you were always helping.
you were always helping.
It was as soon as you were old enough to be able to do so, you were. And that started at 8, 10, 12 years old.
Sure.
You were.
Sure.
There was.
I just wasn't sure when you started. Like you said, if you're at home, you're helping.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't sure when, time period wise, if you were still living at home till you were 20, right? You said 20 is when you moved out. But even after 20, you were still helping dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that was, okay, so we get from the cleaning business.
Yeah.
You were painting for him. Then you get roped into cleaning?
Yeah, well, I didn't really. He
Or he
kind of
just
did.
asked
He
you?
kind of did all the carpet stuff on himself, and then he comes to me one day. Said, "We got this place to clean up." He said, "I'll pay you extra." It was a suicide deal,
Yeah.
and I, being naive, didn't know kind of what that all entailed, and
Yeah. Didn't put together suicide cleanup. That must mean mess.
yeah, well, yeah, and it's suicide by gun, so,
Right.
Yeah, and in this particular instance, this person didn't commit this act and then immediately die right there.
Expired
they kind of
spot, yeah.
wandered around the house for a little bit.
Yeah.
So there was stuff everywhere,
Yep.
You see fragments of things and blood and kind of all that. Some of the things couldn't be saved, had to be thrown out, and I told the older gentleman that owned the business, his name was Denny. I said, Denny, I don't really care what this pays. I don't want to do another one of those.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good.
So you learned that, hey, that's where I draw the line. We're not cleaning up after people dying, which understandably so. There's a movie about that actually, but I think Samuel L. Jackson's in it. Anyway.
But it's one of those things like I would never want to do it again.
Yeah.
But it's almost, I don't know if I want to say grateful for the experience, but it's like you get to see something that somebody has to do. I mean, somebody's got to be the person to do that. And it's like, okay, I seen that part of life. I experienced that. Like, I have a bigger appreciation for the people that have to take care of those kind of things. But don't call me again.
Yeah, I just talked to Naomi about this. We were watching a movie, and there was this like, oh man, I wish I could remember exactly what it was. But we were watching this movie, and there was this thing that happened in somebody's house where there was, traumatic, or no, that's what it was. There was like this hold up in a hospital. Somebody got shot. This person wanted to be treated but wasn't being treated. It was in a TV show. And they shot somebody. There was other stuff, and it was in this person's office. So the person at the end of the show comes back to their office, which they weren't in there the whole time. It was their office being used by other people, essentially. Well, forcefully used by other people. But she comes in and looks at her office and just looking around, and there's like obviously an array of things in the room, broken, blood, all this. And I looked at Naomi and I was like, you know what? I'm the sick person that moment right there, I would actually love but hate. Because I'm always the person that likes to see that deeper meaning. I like when things make me feel, I don't know what the word is, but being in that moment, it'd be like something happened here that was huge.
Right.
Life or death, meaningful, people being pushed to the limit of like, oh my word, I'm going to die, but I'm okay. Like, and being in that room, I would be like, I would sit there and just think for hours. Like, nope, don't touch anything yet. Just let me be in this moment. I'm weird like that.
Yeah.
So I understand what you mean when you say like, I'm glad I had the experience. Never want to experience it again.
Glad I had it.
I have a lot of things in life like that where I'm like, I never want to experience that again. But I'm glad that I saw some darkness. I'm glad that I saw some hopelessness in a way. I'm glad that I experienced this. I would never wish it on anybody, but it shapes you and molds you and makes you appreciate certain things. That's the thing is without like superior dark moments, you're never going to have extremely light moments because you won't recognize it as extremely
when you get into a situation like that, and then it does bring deeper thought, like, like man, this person will struggle in that much, like, then the curiosity kicks in, like, what's going on? But in this particular situation, from what I had heard afterwards, after they had did that in one level of the house, they had instant regret.
Yep.
And that's why they were in different parts of the house, like trying to stop this.
Yep.
Like, and unfortunately for them, it didn't turn out good for them. They didn't make it through that. But, they did this and then had instant regret about it. And they're like, okay, maybe I don't want to die. And so that took them to different areas of the house to kind of try to save themselves. So, but then it brings those thoughts like, man, what were they going through? What did they experience to get to that point? And then you just feel horrible because you're like, they had a change of mind after that, but then it was too late.
Yep.
So I was like, dang.
Yep.
That was
my old student. That's what happened to him. He did that, and then, but it didn't expire right away, and had regret.
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on.
Couple that, so that, like, that time in life was that, always full, at least summer was a full-time job. I worked part-time during school, working for Dad, and then sports. And at that time, baseball was heating up a bunch. I mean, like, runner-up state title game, push on that.
Yeah.
So I grew up playing shortstop, and then when I got an opportunity to play varsity, I switched to center field, so then I switched to center field. Kind of grew up that way, but so I was ramping up, trying to kind of balance that all. But then the horse business kicked off right as I was kind of finishing up high school, and so that became a big deal. But that was about the time that rodeo started, because my dad traveled a lot with a guy named Dick Schmidt, he's unfortunately no longer with us. But he was really good friends with my dad. They traveled together to a lot of horse sales. And Dick had a son named Kyle. And Kyle rodeoed. And that's kind of how I found out about it. He was a few years younger than me. So
what did he do? Rodeo.
He was predominantly a bareback rider. But in high school, he went back to riding bulls and saddle broncs. So he did all three rough stock events. He qualified for nationals in all three.
How do you not end up dead?
I don't know, man. Now he's jump ahead.
We're doing all three.
Yeah. Jump ahead of him on a second. He resides in Iowa now. He's a horse trader, but he's selling like $80,000 horses.
That's the horses you've sent me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he specializes in all good colored geldings, rope horses, things like that. Yeah, Kyle Schmidt. He's Schmidt Horse Sales, but
jeez.
yeah, his grandpa had a sale
So you
barn
know
in
him?
Plain. Yeah.
You call him up.
I haven't spoke to him in quite some time.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say we can't get a free horse. No,
not those caliber horses. Those ones don't come free, but he was rodeoing, but he was a few years younger than me, so he was still in high school.
Yeah.
And I was past high school age, so I couldn't. And Wisconsin has Little Britches of Wisconsin Association. They have Wisconsin High School Rodeo Association. And I was like, well, I can't do any of those, so what else could I do? I was like, oh, I could fight bulls for those associations. So that's the route I took. I started out fighting bulls, protection side. A lot of people will see it as rodeo clowns. But it's kind of different. Your clown is your barrelman funny guy.
Yep.
And it's not what I did. I did cowboy protection.
Sure.
I started out in Little Britches, and then I fought bulls for Wisconsin High School Rodeo Association. Fought bulls for state finals for Wisconsin High School Rodeo Association. The stock contractor that had the stock at the time is a professional stock contractor out of Iowa. Three Hills Rodeo, Dave Moorhead, Dave and Marla, great people. They have actually been watching the NFR this week, and they got a few of their horses. I don't know if they got a bull. I didn't look at the whole stock list, but they got some horses out there. But So, in terms of bullfighting, you're hired by the stock contractor. So that's how I kind of got into that. And I was riding a few bucking horses at that time, too, at just some open rodeos.
Not just for your dad, in rodeo.
Yeah. There's plenty of buckers on the home front. But, yeah, in rodeo, just some open rodeos.
Sure.
Yeah, and that lasted 5-6 years probably in the rodeo world.
So that's crazy. You never got super hurt in rodeo.
No, it was riding horses for
a sale barn horse, right?
Sale barn horse was the broken wrist, and the titanium came from a young horse I was riding for my dad.
Yeah. So, any good rodeo stories? I've never heard you talk much about the rodeo stuff.
Fort Scott, Kansas. I went to a rodeo school.
Wait, to Kansas?
So
a rodeo school?
So they put on schools, so you can go and you can learn better skills and all the events or whatever. Yep. The particular school I went to was a rough stock school, but they had a bullfighting section. Lyle Sankey put it on. Sankey Rodeo Company. They're like big time stock contractors in the pro rodeo world, but he put on, and I went with my buddy Kyle that I was just talking about. Mm-hmm. He was still in high school and he wanted to get a little bit better, so he jumped in the bareback horse riding section of that, and I jumped in the bullfighting section of that. And there was only one other student there for bullfighting. The instructor was a pro bullfighter out of Sikeston, Missouri, Tim. And the other kid in it was Tim's little brother. But anyway, so you just practice. They bring in some young bulls. They call them plumber bulls. It's kind of a breed. But so you're working on cowboy protection there as the other students, because there's bull riding students that are learning. So you're doing protection for that
together. Yeah.
But then you're learning other, and that was my first taste of freestyle fighting, because a lot of times at these rodeos, these stock contractors, they want to put on a show. So sometimes they'll ask their cowboy protection guys, hey, go to this bull, fight him,
make them
freestyle him,
Yep.
And it's similar to Mexican style bullfighting without swords and stuff, and capes.
Yep, you're dodging,
you're making rounds with them.
You're poking, prodding, and running away.
Yeah.
In simplest terms, I know it's more than that.
Yeah. So then one section of it, we had to learn how to work a barrel. So a lot of times there's different things you can do. You lay that barrel down, and you want that bull to come to the barrel. Mm-hmm. You want to be kind of hitting the barrel as and this was where the interesting part was. I had never done that before, and so I'd laid it down, young plumber bull in the corner, and he came out a little sooner than I thought he would. And I didn't have, you want your forearms on the barrel and your feet back, kind of like if you're doing what they call sprawling in wrestling.
Sure, yep.
So when he hits that, you're absorbing it, and you're kind of backpedaling with it. He came out a little sooner than I thought he would, and he hit that barrel. And these barrels they're a couple hundred pounds at least. They're padded, they're insulated for the guy that's in them.
Yep.
And he hit that barrel, and that come up and hit me under the chin and laid me flat on my back. About knocked me cold. Didn't knock me out, but laid me flat. And then he hits the barrel again, and the barrel rolls over me, and then he camps on me, and he just starts grubbing me. And the other bullfighter comes in and peels him off. But Yeah, and they video everything. So when we get to class, you do like in arena stuff, and then you go to classroom and review stuff. And they reviewed that video, and everybody there got a pretty good laugh out of that. But yeah,
So
that
he
I got grubbed in the dirt pretty bad in Kansas.
and by grubbing you, it's like,
He's camped on me slashing horns at me.
yep. Did he have horns? So were you getting hooked?
He did have horns, not real big.
No,
He's a
they're
young
and they're
bull.
probably they're obviously dulled, right?
Yeah, they have to tip
Yeah,
them. That rule
yeah.
on that is they have to cut any tips off. The end of that horn can be no smaller than the size of a quarter.
Oh, gotcha.
So
I
they
mean,
can't-
well, but that's still plenty.
yeah,
It's still plenty.
yeah.
Pointy.
That was more embarrassing than hurt. I didn't really get injured there. My pride was hurt, but I didn't really get injured. My injuries didn't come in a rodeo arena. For the
No,
most part,
yeah,
so.
yeah. So then, yeah, let's jump to during this time. You still got horses back at home.
Yeah.
Banshee horse,
Yeah.
because that's before titanium, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was out on my own then. I had moved out of home, and we just had a small place, and I probably stayed within 30 minutes of my dad's place, so still helping him out. He'd send me a horse once in a while to ride for him, and then I, go to sales for him and stuff. But yeah, so we had this bright idea. The person that I was with at the time had this bright idea. Saw an ad over by Green Bay for a lady that had a Strawberry Roan Mustang, like an actual Mustang,
Yep.
tattooed BLM, Bureau of Land Management,
Woo!
free to a good home.
A horse that everybody would love to have, but nobody can take care of,
Yeah.
or very little people can take care of.
Free to a good home. So, and I didn't realize it, but there's rules and regulations, like you have to have a 6 foot high solid fence. I didn't know that, that kind of deal. But I had built a round pen, a wooden round pen. So went and got this horse from Green Bay, brought it home, kept it in round pen, fiddled around with it a little bit.
Make sure. This went dark on me, and I don't want it to. We're still good. Good old technology.
Yeah, so that was the first, last, and only Mustang. But that led into the show that I talked to you about, Unbridled.
Or no, unbranded.
Unbranded. Yeah, where they take that trip from the Mexico to Canadian
That
on Mustangs
that
they adopted.
everybody should watch that. That's a good documentary.
That is.
Group of college kids get a bunch of. It's to help with Bureau of Land Management and Mustangs, like getting awareness.
Yep, get awareness of the adoption process and how many horses need homes. And
Yep, because this is just one story. Now Mustangs obviously are hard to deal with. I mean, it just is what it is. I don't think it's everybody should adopt them.
Yeah, but if you have the knowledge, the experience, and the time to spend with them, you can make a good horse out of them.
Oh, for sure. Like these dudes. I mean, it didn't even seem like they spent as much time as I would think.
Yeah, they just started them. They put like 30 days on them,
Yeah.
and then they went.
Then they went
But when you're taking, I don't know how many miles, is that a couple thousand miles?
from Mexico to Canada.
So they're gonna get good by the time that trip's done.
Now,
But as you could see in that, there was some cactus
yeah.
experiences.
Oh, a lot of experiences. I will say that documentary made me realize how it's interesting. Horses, how durable, but also fragile horses are. Sure. It's weird. It's so cool and it's beautiful. That's why horses fascinate me, and I would love to have horses. They would probably end up mostly as pasture pets if I had them, just because I am a little timid.
Yeah.
And I know that a horse can pick up on that.
They feel you.
Yep. And so, but I want to get into horses so bad. I want horses. I don't have land though. I don't have any of that. Someday, it'd be nice. What I really want, because it fascinates me even more, is bulls. I would love to have bucking bulls. The only thing is, I ain't got nobody to buck them, because I don't know if I'm getting on no bucking bulls every day.
Yeah.
I ain't.
Me neither.
If I had people coming in that would buck them for me, sweet.
I've only been on bull twice in my life, and that was backwards both times for a benefit rodeo.
ridiculous.
It's just that's laying down, hanging on the flank strap, laying down on your belly with your head towards your butt, hanging on a flank strap, and then you hook your feet under the horns.
Yeah. So the YouTube channel that this is going on is my personal channel, the Brock Robert Floyd channel, and I'm just making my life podcast episodes that'll just go on there. I'm not going to start a whole new channel for, you know what I mean? Throw it on there. Well, I'm planning on, Naomi is actually super interested in watching me or having me vlog because it'll be cool to see our kids grow up.
Yeah.
And why not? I don't know. That sounds a little weird, but why not put it on YouTube? Not them growing up. They're not the focus of it.
Right.
But in the background, you're going to see life and you're going to see the kids and blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a couple vlog series videos that I have ideas for. I got family vacation coming up. Mm-hmm. I have Japan in March. Well, I also got next summer a little plan that I'm working towards that I can't talk to you about, but
sure. Well, and
you
we
know
still got
what it
to.
is.
I have a rain check on.
Yeah, ranch day.
I have a rain check on ranch day.
Yeah,
they had a bunch of cattle get sick, and
Yeah.
they had to doctor them different, so they weren't bringing the weanlings in and tagging and doctoring like they normally were doing. So that whole deal got scratched for this year, but I got a rain check on that.
If it's possible, I don't know if my friend Madison Waddell. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if I can time it. I don't know if he's planning on coming up next summer or not. But if I could coordinate it around then, because he's
all about it.
Well, he was going, I don't know if you know this, he was going to Oklahoma. He was going to college in Oklahoma, learning to ranch.
Yeah.
And had a job lined up at a ranch out west.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened.
Killed a lot of things.
Well, but now...
Killed my Speed Delight basketball debut.
Yeah, for real. But then, you know, I think it sent Madison on a good trajectory now. I mean, the dude, I just saw he hit his PR in the snatch.
Yeah.
You know, that thing where you put it up here and you squat 200 pounds.
Wow.
200 pounds.
My back would go, no thank you.
My shoulders.
Foot off the ground.
My shoulders would go, no thank you. And then there's a video of him ringing the bell because this CrossFit thing, you ring the bell when you hit a PR. Dude, his traps and shoulders are turning into that CrossFit. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Dude, he's turning into a beast.
Crazy.
But I want to coordinate it with next year where then I'll go, I think it's checks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so ranch day, checks, all in 1 week.
Yeah, we're actually talking there. So one of the guys that hauls logs for us pretty regularly, Kurt Goodrich, he rodeoed for quite a while with the Czech boys. He's still really good friends with them, and he was actually seeing if I had a seasonal spot open at the mill in one of our other trucks for Corey Czech.
Interesting.
Who has all the stock. And that's the reason why I was asking that, because from April till October, he's on the road hauling his stock.
Sure.
Stock contract.
Yeah, so it's seasonal. So the other part of the year, what are you doing?
Right. So, and which for us, you know, on the logging end of things, that's wintertime anyway, mostly.
Okay.
So if that comes to fruition, I'll have a little closer connection.
Then that makes you liable.
No, it doesn't.
I'm
not talking to him.
Yeah, because my dad could end up killing somebody if they find out.
Yep.
If he finds out that they helped me get on a bull.
Yep.
But that's the plan, is I'm getting on a bull next summer. That's the goal. I wanted to this summer, but it just didn't work out. Yeah. But if I could get Madison to come up for a weekend or whatever, one day doing the ranch day, and then
it's usually like late May, early June. It's typically when they do it.
And then I'll see if we can get on, because he wants to get on a bull too. Now he's gonna be, you know, he's big. He's strong though, but he's big. Yeah. In the sense of, like, I'm not saying big as in he's just like, Madison is built. Yeah. So bull riding, tough. I'd rather see him bulldog, but dude, he would toss.
Dude, we got a Sparta guy at the NFR just killing it right now.
Really?
That guy. Yeah, he won round.
He's from Sparta?
Yeah.
Dude. That's sick.
So out on, you know where the Sportsman's Club is?
Like the Rod and Gun Club?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you go on 71, instead of turning left to go to the Rod and Gun Club, turn right. Janice Ave.
Yep.
And Arlen Brooks has a ranch out there.
Interesting.
So there's Trent Brooks, I don't know if there's much age difference between you guys, but there's Trent Brooks and Nick Guy are stepbrothers. And
Okay.
when I was fighting bulls for high school rodeo, they were rodeoing in high school yet. At that time, they were team roping together, steer wrestling.
Yeah.
But Nick went pro. He was trying to decide between semi-pro hockey and staying rodeo, and he stayed in rodeo as steer wrestler.
Mm.
And he's made, I think, at the NFR this year. Last night I watched. I think he's won 65,000 at the NFR this year. He won round 3, I think, and then he's placed in a couple other rounds. He came in at 13th in the world. He was up to 7th, and I think this morning I checked he was back to 9th. But
Cheap.
he was at like $180,000 for the year.
Holy smoke!
When his name comes up, I think he technically lives in Colorado now.
Okay.
But when it comes up, it says Nick Guy, Sparta, Wisconsin.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we got some future rodeo stars out of Sparta.
Yeah.
The gal on my softball team, her daughter did some high school national level or state level rodeo, and she like top.
Yeah, rodeo around here is actually bigger than some people. They don't ever equate it to Wisconsin, but 2006 PRCA World Champion bull riders from Hillsboro, Wisconsin, BJ Schumacher.
Really?
I was fighting bulls for high school when he was riding in high school. He broke his leg right in front of me the first time. He's got the same apparatus inside his leg that I got.
Which leads us to, so after the Wild Banshee story,
Yeah.
you're getting on a horse for your dad. What happens?
Yeah, I had a little 5-year-old Peppy Sam Badger horse.
That's why whenever I sent Bill horses, like, what do you think of this horse? Looks at the lineage. Sam Badger. Peppy Sam Badger in
Sam
there.
Badger, they're just bronchi colts, it seems. I don't know many that have started that haven't been. But this horse was kind of catty. And
What does that mean?
Well, you just kind of think of like in the sports world, agility,
Okay.
agile,
Sure.
moves quick,
Yep.
twitchy.
Yep.
Pretty catty in that sense. And the first time I got on this horse was just in the dry lot at my dad's farm. So just a small lot that was all fenced in. And he kind of rode around okay. And then I noticed, and I noticed it, but I should have put it in my memory bank. One time I went to stop him in that pen, and he kind of shifted my weight forward, and when he did, it raises the back of the saddle a little bit, which pulls that back cinch a little bit, which is near kind of a flank area, and I felt him ball up. I felt him ball up, so they'll get like a rise in their back. It's like that tense moment where that could go one of two directions. Either they come down out of it or they blow up.
Yep.
And I didn't keep that in my memory bank long enough. So then we were in Ontario, Wisconsin, not Canada.
Yep.
For those, but
Not far down the road.
there's a place down there called the OK Corral, and you can kind of camp there too. And then it's just a short jaunt to Wildcat Mountain, which has all kinds of horse trails.
Yep.
So
horse camping over there.
Yeah. So we were down there, and actually, BJ Schumacher was putting on a bull riding clinic at the OK Corral, and I wasn't there for that. I was there to ride. So we saddle up, and my dad actually was there on a different horse that day. I don't hardly ever in my whole life, as much as we've ridden, I can count probably at one hand the number of times I've rode with him.
Mm-hmm.
Especially just for pleasure, but. It's never just pleasure because it's always we're teaching a horse something while we're. So anyway, we're riding down the side of the highway because we had to ride like a quarter of a mile and then cross over and then we get into Wildcat.
Yep.
Well, this truck and trailer was coming behind us, and typical etiquette, slow down, move over kind of a deal when there's horses, and they didn't. They went by like 55, didn't move over, so it was like within 3 feet, and this horse lost his mind. And he went to bucking, and I'm on the road, and every time he bucks and his head drops, all I see is pavement. And I'm trying to get handfuls of rein to get his head up, because if you get their head up and turned, you can kind of get him out of it. But it didn't happen, but luckily he veered more towards the ditch, threw me off, down in the ditch. He takes off running, not a big deal, gather him up, and I thought, well, before I go any further, I'm going to go. They hadn't started the bull riding school yet, but everything was set up, so they had a metal round pen set up. So I thought, I'm going to take him in there, ride him down a little bit. So I'm in there tooling him around, kind of trotting around the outside, and I go to kick him up into a canter, and he just went to bucking. Just, they call it kind of cutting in two. He was just, and it was, at that point I had rode bucking horses in rodeo, and this is probably the hardest bucking horse I'd ever been on.
So probably win 90.
if I could have done my part, but I couldn't stand a chance. And he was getting me out the back end of the saddle, and he bucked in. So I came off the back. I came out the back end, so off the saddle over the back, and I felt like I was gonna have a foot hang up in the stirrup. So I kicked my foot. Yeah, because I don't want to get dragged around.
No.
So as I'm kind of kicked that put me like parallel with the ground. So I'm coming over the butt of the horse, and I'm falling like this.
Back?
And,
like on
yep.
On your back.
Well, kind of on my side and back a little bit. But,
gotcha.
So feet up and everything,
yep.
And he's still bucking, and it's all I can see it in slow motion. But it's like split second.
Yep.
So I'm coming over the back, and he's bucking, and he kicks out with both feet, and it hits my right leg. And as soon as it did, I talked to a guy at a sale a couple years later, and he said, "You were that kid." I said, "Yeah, that was me." He said, "It sounded like Bo Jackson struck out and he broke the bat over his leg."
I never heard it, but I can imagine.
He said it sounded like that. He said it like somebody snapped a baseball bat, and it was slow motion. So that horse's feet hit my leg, and just blew it up. And as I'm falling, I reach down and grab my leg where it's broke, because it's halfway between my knee and my ankle, and it's like literally coming out at a 90. So as I'm falling, I grab it. So when I hit the ground on my right side, I have it held together there. And that was like excruciating. And I laid there in the dirt. It was 45 minutes before an ambulance got there. There was a guy there that was an off-duty EMT. So we got a couple of sticks and some tape, and we put it on each side of my leg, taped it up to stabilize it. Well, I laid there. And after about 10 minutes or so, it started to go numb. But the ambulance showed up, and they started checking me out. They cut my pants up to my knee, which is to be expected. They put a soft cast on it, which, as we talk later on, when I got into EMS.
Wait a second. Did you skip over how long you were laying there?
45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Before the ambulance got there.
Yeah.
45 minutes laying in the dirt.
Sorry, I couldn't remember. For a second, I was like, wait, did you say that or not? Yeah. I couldn't remember. Gotcha.
Yep. And so they put a soft cast on it, which, as we'll talk later, when I got into EMS, I hate those things for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Got me on a backboard. They go to pick me up, and one of the EMTs said, "Hey, did you check pulses?" And what they were talking about was pedal pulse, which is top of your foot.
Yeah.
So when you have a fracture, as I learned later on, you check pulses before and after you stabilize a fracture, because you want to make sure you didn't move something and cut off the blood supply or occlude the blood supply, so then I have blood slide in my foot and whatever.
Right.
So they're like, "Oh no, we forgot." So they set me back down. They take the cast off. They cut my boot off. They cut my pants all the way up to my hip. Cut my sock off. Check for pulses. Put the cast back on, which was excruciating.
Yeah.
Load me up. Go to the hospital in Sparta. Get in there. There's X-ray tech. Is not fond of horses. So there's two X-ray techs there. One of them I knew. She was a big-time barrel racer.
Oh, yeah.
Had this crazy good-looking stud paint horse that she barrel raced in a lot of places. An older lady, but she was very fond of horses. Unfortunately, she wasn't working that day. So I had the other one that didn't like horses, and she was moving my leg to get the pictures, and every time she did, I could feel what they call crepitus. I feel the bones rubbing together where they're broke, and I wanted to throw up. And I got upset with her, and I was like, just stop. I had words I probably shouldn't have said, but in a nice way, stop. You let me know what you need for an X-ray picture, and I'll move myself there. And so anyway, then laying there, and doctor comes in, X-rays. Hey, yeah, you need to go for surgery. I was like, well, I figured that. But mind you, the hard part was that happened at about 10 o'clock in the morning. Laid there in the dirt 45 minutes, went ambulance to the hospital, got all the X-rays. Doctor comes in, it's broke, you need to have surgery. Would you like some pain medication now? That was a little after 2 o'clock. There was a little over 4 hours where I had no pain meds for that.
Oh!
Excruciating.
So
I transferred down to the hospital in Sauk City where my dad and grandpa had their orthopedic surgeries. Had a rod put in. So they drill out the bone from the knee to the ankle, the tibia, the big shin bone. Put a rod in, screws to the top, screws to the bottom. what they didn't know, I went in for my 6-week checkup, and I was like, my ankle was just hurting, and so they re-x-rayed, like, yeah, your ankle's broke too. They're like, we're so thankful that you were really faithful with your, because it was an air cast because of the swelling, and I could take it off if I wanted to, but I kept it on a lot. And they said, we're lucky you did that because your ankle set in place, right? Otherwise, we would have to re-break it and put pins in it. And I was like, yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That's,
Thank you.
So a knee to ankle is titanium. It screws through the top, screws through the bottom, and yeah, that was a.
So if you ever need to head kick somebody, that's the one to throw it with.
Yeah, right.
Jeez, dude, that's miserable. But like you kind of alluded to, that led to you wanting to go to EMS.
Yeah, well, the first trajectory that started to take place was I got out of bullfighting, I got out of rough stock events, and I started roping and team penning. So I did a bunch of team roping. I found a good horse at a sale in Iowa. They sold him as a roping horse, but they didn't preview him in the preview pen. A lot of them sales will have preview pens. If you say it's a rope horse, they'll say back in the box, go rope. And they didn't. So, but I got him really cheap.
Yeah.
For what he ended up being, but he ended up being a really good teenage season rope horse. So I had steers on him for a while and did some team penning and stuff. Mm. That horse ended up in North Dakota. There was a lady that contacted me, said, hey, I heard you had this horse. I got a son that's getting into high school rodeo. I just need a good horse. Good, tested, seasoned horse. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, sure. I met them I was on my way out to Billings, Montana with my buddy Kyle, selling horses out in Billings. That's kind of where he started to get into the more expensive horses. And met them in Jamestown, North Dakota, and they gave me an envelope that was really thick with green cash in it. He went out there, and I think they spent 4 or 5 years that horse teaching their kid how to rope, and then then he got into his late teen years and ended up having to put him down. But yeah, he did good out there, taught him how. But yeah, so I did that a little bit, and then when I met my current wife, I say this like there's others, only wife, but and thought about starting a family. That's when I really kind of transitioned out of most of that. But then I was like, I didn't have that adrenaline, Phil.
You needed something.
Yeah, so I was like, what can I do?
You do that for so long, you need something.
And my wife at the time was a registered nurse, so I was kind of fascinated by this medical stuff. So I was like, hey,
be a girl.
Let's go run on an ambulance rig. So yeah. I went to school, got my first responder.
How long does that take?
First responder isn't bad. 3 months.
What?
Probably. It's pretty limited basic care. And then I went back and got my EMT basics certificate, which is about 6 months. I think it was 180 hours of class time.
Jeez.
And then you have to have so many hours of clinicals.
I thought it'd be more than that.
Yeah.
Why?
When you get to paramedic, paramedic's a 2-year.
Oh, gotcha.
A 2-year deal.
Okay.
Which is what. So I told you about the brother that was a horseshoer, auctioneer, horse trainer, and then a nurse. My youngest brother, Jared, he started out, got in the military, got out, was doing some odd jobs, and now he's a paramedic.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know. His medical seems to kind of take it. But then I went back and got my advanced EMT so I could start IVs and things like that, and ran on an ambulance rig for 5 or 6 years, whatever it was. And then just my regular day job career kind of took me out of doing some of the ambulance work, but it was fun. I loved it. It's still fascinating.
So how old were you when you did that? Started doing
9.
And you did that for how many years?
On the EMS?
Yeah.
It was either 5 or 6 years.
Okay. And then, so being in EMS, you loved it.
Yeah.
What was the draw?
The draw? Well,
like, what was the, oh, I love this. Why?
Well, it was a way to serve and help people and be in a environment that was controlled chaos.
Yeah.
just the fascination to it. I mean, the more I learned about the medical world and how things worked and how, the physiology, the pathophysiology, you can get down to the cellular level. Some of that stuff you get kind of like, all right, this is a little bit more than I want to learn about. But
Yeah.
man, and I tell you, just in life situations, you can find yourself in situations in life where you have that type of training, you can be an asset.
Sure.
And you can have
for sure.
a lot of situations.
Yeah, we could have used you at softball.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Right. So, but the allure to it was that it was a way to volunteer. I mean, it was a paid position, but it was a way to serve the community, help people out, and then just I like learning. So learning all the medical stuff and the experiences. There was a lot of experiences in there that are some of them can be pretty tough and tough to deal with, but some of them are like, that was awesome. Wow, that was cool. Or just stories to tell about it. Doing clinicals was probably my favorite. You have clinicals that you do certain amount of clinicals in an emergency room, and then you have certain amount of clinicals that you run on an ambulance, and you have to have these signed off on in order to complete your license.
Sure.
The medical director of the hospital in that area was also the EMS medical director, so he had to sign off on all of your stuff. So there's certain skills you had to complete. Like I had to have, when I went for my advanced EMT, like I had to have 10 IV starts, 10 successful IV starts. I had to triage 10 different patients. And I think that was, if I remember right, so that was each in the ER and on the ambulance rig.
Gotcha.
So, but that was the best in there. I liked triaging patients.
What does a triage include?
Well, triage is assessment, and depending on the nature of it, it's either the two different assessments. There's a medical assessment or there's a trauma assessment, depending on why they're there.
Yeah.
Somebody comes in that's sick, you're going to do a medical assessment. Somebody comes in that's been in a car wreck, you're doing a trauma assessment.
Yeah.
So they're different, but basically on the trauma is a head-to-toe exam. It's hands-on, it's verbal, it's asking questions. There's certain acronyms that go with it, and that's kind of what you follow. There's SAMPLE is one of them. Signs and symptoms, medical, pertinent information. L is last oral intake. E is events leading up to. So you have acronyms to follow on that to do kind of your triage. And so you get kind of a general assessment of, because a lot of times when you go into the situations that are crazy, car wreck, for instance, your initial instinct is, what do I see with this patient? Oh, they got an arm that's half hanging off. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's your focus and you're not doing your full assessment, you could miss something. Bleeding. Yeah. Something that's not obvious on the outside.
Something that could actually probably be lethal in the next 5 minutes.
Right.
But you're looking at that's just life in general, right? We always look at what is out there existing instead of looking at the root of stuff, and you miss something.
Your rapid trauma assessment, they call it your ABCs: airway, breathing, circulation. Do I have a stable airway? Is this patient breathing? And am I seeing blood flowing anywhere? That's my initial rapid trauma assessment.
Yeah, out of here.
And then you start going to because if you don't have an airway and you're not breathing,
you're done.
And if you're bleeding profusely, you're going to be done shortly.
Yeah.
So you do the major, and then you start going more in depth, and then you try to determine, we said in that time, is this a load and go or is this a stay and play? Is this like, I need to get them to a trauma center because there's nothing I can do in the field for them? Or is this a stay and play, which is basically saying there's interventions that I can do now that will help this patient, and they're not to the point of seriousness where I got to get them to a trauma center like now.
Yeah.
So.
Shoot.
Yeah, there was lots of good IV stars. I remember one. I'll tell this story and leave out details, obviously, for medical purposes, but privacy purposes. But I was doing a clinical in the ER, and at that time they actually let me do it in urgent care too, which is where I got most of my IV starts. But there's a prison that's not too far from the hospital I was doing clinicals at. So if they had people that were in need of medical from prison, they would bring them down to the hospital.
Yep.
They brought a gentleman in once that was a very large man. I'm talking like 6'6", 320, just big dude.
Yeah.
And not necessarily the most pleasant. So I was new at this, so I was a little intimidated to begin with.
Yeah, for real.
And the doc says go in and triage him. He's got a guard with him. Go in and triage him, whatever. So go in and triage him, and had a big boil in his armpit. It was okay. Talk to the doctor about it. Doctor comes in, takes a look at him. Doc says, we're gonna have to lance this open, drain it, so on and so forth. But before we do that, I want to get an IV started on this guy, just in case we get into something further. We got to do antibiotics in the IV or whatever. So I was like, okay. So I walk back in, and what I do is I get a tray out and I set up all my IV supplies, my needles, my tourniquet, everything. And I walk back in, and they don't have him in cuffs any longer. And so the intimidation factor, he's already going up. And so I'm getting my stuff ready, and Emin looks at me and goes, I explained to him, I got to give you an IV. Doc says you need an IV, in case you need to get something going. He says, I don't like needles at all. You better get this right. You better get this right. So I have this vision in my head of him taking my IV needle from me and sticking my eyeball or something. So I'm like, oh my goodness. And I had done a few IVs, so I was decent at that. I was actually looking back for being as experienced as I was. I was actually really good at IVs. But I'm shaking through this. So I get everything set up, prep on alcohol.
Whole thing was a test. They were pressuring you and making sure that
And, nurses in there watching, and thankfully, first try, I get everything stuck. But I'm so nervous, I forget to occlude. So when you get that IV in, they're different. The setups are different. These particular ones have a button you hit, and it basically retracts the needle, so that the synthetic piece stays in the vein, but the actual needle's not in. The needle's just getting started.
Yeah.
So retract it. But when you do that, right above where you started that IV, you press down on the vein. It's called occluding it.
Yeah. So blood doesn't
come out while you get the rest of your equipment put on and closed off. And I didn't do that because I was so nervous. So I start to put my stuff away, and I don't realize it, but there's blood pouring out of this dude. And the nurse is like, you may want to stop that. And there's a puddle forming on the floor. So I occluded it quick, got everything cleaned up, and I got out. I was like literally sweating at the time. Getting out of there.
Dude, this guy's going to kill me.
I know. I was like,
oh my.
But he's like, that's good. That's good. I was like, okay, thanks. I'm gonna be out of here now, because
no freaking kidding.
Wipe the sweat off myself.
So that takes you to EMS. How did you get into the lumber industry?
Yeah, that's just, I was
rodeo, trading horses, cleaning.
Yeah, you always had to have a job, and I still lived at home at that time, and I honestly don't remember what I was doing before that.
Before what?
Oh, before I got into the lumber industry, I just doing some odd stuff. I did some welding at one point. Did a little.
When did that start? Like, wait, when did the lumber industry stuff start?
When I was 20 in 2000.
Oh,
way back.
So you were doing lumber industry stuff throughout all this.
Mm-hmm.
So as an EMS, that's not your full-time job.
No, that was nighttime. So I was.
What the heck?
Yeah.
I thought that was like a full-time job.
No.
Which is also why you've been my doctor for years.
I typically did on the EMS stuff. I did 12-hour overnight shifts, 1 day a week, and then I would do some weekends as I could or whatever. So that was on Thursday. So I would go to work, and then I would leave my day job. I would go to the station, and I would do an overnight 12-hour shift overnight from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and I would leave from there and go back to work.
What in the world?
Some of it was quiet if you didn't get a lot of calls, but when we upped our level of service to a paramedic level service, and we were doing interfacility transfers, because the hospital in that town was just a small town hospital, so they didn't have a big trauma center. So we would oftentimes transfer patients from there to Marshfield or Madison,
Yeah.
or Rochester, different places. When you got those, it made for long nights. You didn't get much sleep.
For sure.
When I switched companies is when I
Gotcha.
got
So
back into
you,
that.
during that time,
But I was 20 years
starting at
old and I
20
needed
years
a
old, you
job.
just,
I went
yeah.
up to a local mill and piled lumber
Oh,
just as a laborer.
yeah. And
grew from there
then,
and learned. I did that for about 6 months, and then a position opened up to tally lumber, which is calculating footage in lumber
okay.
in there. So I went and did that, and then the manager of that department was out for 2.5 months, I think. He had gastric bypass surgery. It was like the stomach shrink surgery for weight loss. And so I had kind of assumed responsibilities over that department during that time.
Huh.
And while he was out, production was up 17%. I remember the numbers 'cause I remember talking about him.
So you're Tom Brady.
Was up 17%, and there's no quality issues, no safety issues. So then I got pulled into the general manager's office and offered a supervisor position. So I supervised that department for a while, and then just kept learning and growing from there. I took over a different department as management of that department, and then I became a purchasing agent and a resource manager. So I was buying all the raw materials for one of their facilities. I was coordinating logistics on it, kind of all that stuff. And then in 2016, one of the companies that I was buying lumber from, which is Granite Valley, came to me and offered me a position with them. And I took that position with them as a purchasing agent, which then in turn grew. Then there was an opening at one of their sawmills, kind of their flagship sawmill, and I was growing with the company, and I got offered to take over responsibility of that facility as a general manager. And I've been doing that for 6 years now.
Jeez.
So, and I tell that story because, and I share it with some of the new hire guys, because I firmly believe in an education, and I believe learning, hence that was kind of my EMS stuff. And I've taken classes and seminars.
Right. Training and stuff.
Business writing for practical purposes, introduction to Excel, supervisory management stuff. So I was kind of learning, but I share that with people because I, try to let people know that you don't always have to go to a four-year university and get a degree to have a successful career somewhere. Sure. In fact, now, like the trades, if you get into the trades,
dude,
it's crazy. So I started out with no formal education, not even a full high school education, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
And I get into something and I stay at it and work at it. I show up every day when I'm supposed to and learn what I can, and I've grown that into a career that's successful enough that my wife can be a stay-at-home mom and help raise our family, and I can make a decent living and support and provide for that.
Yeah.
So there's ways to do it. School is awesome, and college can get you a lot of places, but if you're, especially in today's age, if you're willing to work and be reliable and versatile and learn, you can make a career out of things that you want to.
Oh, for sure. I think actually the world is starting to, depending on the industry, is starting to get back to that. It almost seems like the world, for a while there, it was all degree, certification. And now I think it's starting to get back to, hey, education's good, but do you have experience?
Yeah.
Like, we need people that know what the heck they're doing.
For sure.
Not just an education.
For sure.
Because I've seen it, in ministry, where it's like people that have an education don't know what the crap they're doing when it comes to ministry. They can write the plans, they can make the events, they can do all this stuff, but they don't have the ministries about people, and they don't have the people side. And it's like you're not going to be great at everything, but there's certain things you can learn, and there's certain things that you need to learn and have, and experience is the best teacher. I mean, it's kind of the route I went too. So
you just got to have that person. Like, I have a saying, because one of my I'm responsible financially for this facility, production, employment, kind of all facets of it. And I always say, let's get the right people on the bus, and then we'll figure out where to sit them.
Sure.
Give me the person that got a good work ethic, that's willing, reliable, dependable. Kind of that 3 criteria in there uh, when we talk about employee retention, if we ever have to make changes, is seniority is always a factor in there, but reliability and versatility.
Mm.
Give me the guy that's willing to learn, that shows up every day on time
Yeah.
and wants to do something.
Yeah.
He can come into our industry and have zero experience. We'll teach him what he needs to know. And that's the guy that will always be successful above all the other stuff. If the people that view it just strictly as a paycheck tend to not be really successful in that area.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if you're doing something just for the paycheck, that's your satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
I get paid, I don't do anything more. But when you're not satisfied with just the paycheck and you're like, I want to learn, I care about what I'm doing and this and that, there's going to be part of you that's driven to do.
Yeah.
And so then when the paycheck comes in, you're not satisfied. You're going to keep working, keep learning, keep doing,
Especially in the service fields. We talk about EMS, for example.
Yeah.
I never did that for money, not a day in my life.
Yeah.
And it's, if and that was just such a thing. If I could have raised a family doing that, that's what I would have done.
Sure.
But and then further on the medical, you talk about like the nursing. There's I truly believe there's folks that have a heart for it, and there's folks that do it for a job. And the week that I was in the hospital after getting a titanium put in my leg, that was an eye opener for me. I had a day shift nurse that was just compassionate, kind. You could tell. And I walked in the room. I had a night shift nurse. You knew she didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And
could be because of night shift.
Could be because of night shift. But it was just always irritated. Oh, what do you need now? Just kind of that. Yeah. And it's like, why would you get in a service field, especially that you're seeing people at their worst, at their low moments, and you come in with an edge and with an attitude? It's like, that's not like, those are the hard ones for me.
That's the wildest thing, and I'm probably guilty of it too, but it's one of the wildest things in this world is that how many people voluntarily put themselves in something, voluntarily choose something, decide something, go through something, and then have an attitude about it. It's like, you signed up for this.
Right.
You signed up to be here. Nobody made you be here.
Nobody's forcing you.
Nobody's forcing you. Well, I had no other option. You had other options. Yeah. You just didn't have the balls to do something else or to make a better decision or to say no. Yeah. I don't care that mom and dad pressured you to do this. You could have said no. Mm-hmm. Well, they're going to disown me and this and that. That's their problem, not yours. Yeah. Are you living your life for them? Because to be honest, like, I'm all about kids and parents, like, work things out, like be in a good relationship. I'm not advocating for dissension, but I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, they're gonna probably die before you. Mm-hmm. If you live your life for them, you're gonna die unsatisfied. Yeah. And I'm not all about feeding your flesh and doing everything you want and dream of and all that stuff, because you need to curb that as well. But at the same time, I can't, like, me becoming a pastor, it wasn't about my dad being a pastor. It wasn't. I graduated applying only to one college and then deciding, I guess I'm going to be a pastor, because I wanted to be a business owner. Mm-hmm. And that was my whole plan from freshman to junior year. My whole plan was make my own business, be my own boss, marry a Laker girl. Done. That was going to be my life. Didn't end up working out that way. And in fact, I hated ministry and I hated the church from a work perspective. Right. Not so much like, oh, I hate these people, but like, I hated the idea of working at church just because, growing up with that. But then, the Lord ends up working things out and just ends up putting you where you're going to be. Sure. And so then I want to kind of wrap up with, and it doesn't matter how long it takes. I'm just saying, like, the final like segment of it is like, so
I had that song playing in my head just now, but the final count.
But the final countdown here is what are you going to do next? Because it's not over. Life, you've lived such a life. You've had, and there's so many things that we didn't even bother getting into. I mean, the foster care, the other stuff, which obviously you can't discuss total details about that, but you guys do that, and all these different things. Your little, I don't want to say off grid, but your little lifestyle that you're living. There's so many different things that you could talk about. But you went from rodeo and you're in the lumber, you're EMS, you're a million experiences that Bill has had.
Mm-hmm.
It's not over for you. So what do you see as next?
Well, a lot of that stuff, was in my younger time. I didn't.
You
get
did a stint in Florida. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
When did you do that?
2003 to 2004. Spent a year down there.
Why did you spend a year in Florida?
Well, I didn't have any responsibilities, I guess, at that time. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. Didn't have a guy that I knew that was up here. I met him up here. He was from Florida. He was like a veteran on the Orlando Police Department. And then he came up here to take over management of a ranch. The guy that owned the ranch was originally from Southern California. He developed a security, like a big security outfit. So if you ever watch an NFL game or golf, PGA Tour, and you see the guys in the yellow jackets that say event staff, that's his business. It's CSC, Contemporary Services Corporation, and it's a security firm. And he started that. This guy's name's Damon Zumwalt. He owns a Woodside Ranch outside of Austin. The big sports complex they built outside of Austin now, like all that. He was in college. He was at a frat party. Some guys came in, started a fight, and he's just this little short dude. So these guys that wanted to start the fight at this frat party went to their car and got a gun. And they were coming back, and he met them outside, and he disarmed them. And like it was like big talk around the campus, and it even got on the San Diego State University radio campus broadcast, whatever. So then these frat guys started hiring him to do security for their parties and stuff, and then he grew it in this business. He does a Super Bowl, he does all the PGA stuff, he does overseas stuff. Well, Danny was my buddy's name, worked for Damon. Danny's dad did too, and so Damon bought Woodside Ranch up here and then asked Danny to come up and work it for him. And that's how I met Danny. And then about a year and a half into his tenure running the ranch, I actually sold him a really good dapple gray horse. And that's kind of how we formed our relationship. And he wrote, like, this horse, like, he's like, what does the horse do? Like, and so he's like, I'm not sure if he's riding right or whatever. So I hopped on him. It's a quick little story. And I went by his house and I rode the horse up the steps of his house onto his porch. I said, there ain't nothing wrong with this horse.
Yeah.
Kind of a deal. But anyway, they decided being up here wasn't for him. They were from Florida. So he was going back there and he's like, you want to go? And I was like, okay. Again. So that was my one of my short stints out of the lumber industry. So I went down there, moved down there with him in Orlando. I got in the union. I was a certified forklift operator putting in trade shows and conventions. And it was a good young man's deal because you'd work like 45, 50-day stretches without a day off. I mean, straight through, in long hours. But you'd have the summer months off. So you could make, and that was early 2000s, you could make 60 grand a year.
Yeah.
And be off collecting $400 a week in unemployment and not have to work the month of June, July, or August living in Florida.
It's not a bad gig.
No, but you could
for a solo for solo dude living his life.
Yeah,
that's not a bad gig though.
Yeah, but then about a little less than a year into it, I was like, this Orlando city life, like, it's not. I gotta get back.
Yeah,
I gotta get back.
I would hate it. I would hate life in a city.
So when I came back from that, that's when I really kind of got into my dad's horse business.
Gotcha.
There.
Gotcha.
And we got into roping, and I was in his horse business before that, but that's when I really got into it hard and was in roping and everything. But
yeah.
So did that stint down there, which was a good life experience. But like I was saying, I didn't get married or start having kids till I was 28. So I did a lot of that stuff.
Sure.
In the younger years. So it's kind of, some people have kids younger, and then in their senior years of life, they're free to go enjoy and do it.
Yeah.
And now I'm 43 and I got a 3-year-old. So
yeah,
I'll be a later in life dad on that. So as far as what's now, it's really raising kids.
Yeah.
Getting them growed up, keeping them involved in things, making sure the Lord's present in their life, um, nourishing a marriage, and continue to experience life. You know, we like to serve, we like to volunteer. There's a ton of stuff out there. As our kids are starting to get older, I'd like to get into traveling a little more. So,
Sure.
you know, fortunately, the horse business, I got to see a lot of places. I think I've been to about 30 states now, and most of that was due to the horse business,
Horses,
horse
yeah.
industry. Now, Bible Quiz has taken us through too. I'd never been to Arizona before that, but yeah, so that's really kind of the bulk of it. You know, maybe a few more career opportunities. I got some things going now. I've just recently received a nomination for a board of directors position for a lumber association that kind of heads up the Great Lakes.
Dude.
There's something that I came across recently that I thought I knew existed, but now I have all the information on it. But you know how, like in sports, they have, what is it, FCLA? Fellowship? No.
Christian. Oh, FCLA.
FCA.
FCLA is something in high school.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
I
But
think that's
FCA is.
FBLA, Future Business
Well,
Leaders.
there is, but then there was something called FCLA.
Gotcha.
But I don't remember what that one was when I was in high school.
But in the lumber industry,
FCA.
they have FLC, Fellowship of Christian Lumbermen.
Huh.
Yeah. So I had found through one of our publications, I had found more information on it just within the last week, and it's a pretty cool deal. A lot of these conventions and stuff that we go to, they'll have Christian Lumberman meetings with it, and then every Friday they have a call in for a prayer call in.
Yeah.
You can call in, get with a group of guys.
Wow.
You know, they just have a few. You know, obviously, you know they want to facilitate people's walks with the Lord.
Yeah.
You know, and it's specific to the lumbermen just because that's our industry, that's our association. So, you know, it's just a small annual due to help pay for the publication. They put out a newsletter and the website.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you got to be part of a company. So,
Sure.
doing a few things of that as far as career, but otherwise, like I said, it's raising kids. You know, keeping their walk with the Lord strong.
Yep.
It's doing some things on the farm. We got the couple big gardens. We got the orchard going. It's
that quiet life.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
the
it's
quiet life,
busy.
but when your house is 102 years old, there's always
Well,
work.
yeah.
Just
But that's the thing is, I mean, you're at a point where, you know, you're focused on what's yours.
Yeah.
You don't, you know, I'm learning that more so now.
And teaching the kids.
Yeah, when I have like kids, wife, and I have my house and I have my whole thing, it's like the more that I invest in that, the better life is. But then you also start to realize like I can just mind my own.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so worried about everybody else anymore. When I was like single, running around doing stuff, it was very much like, what does this person think? What is, you know, and not just people pleasing, but yeah, you're kind of wondering how you. Now it's like I don't care how I look. I'm kind of turned off to everybody.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of I don't reach out. Like you still, as a Christian and me in ministry, I still have to be there for people.
Right.
Which I've found, you know, a decent balance with that, where it's like I'm here for people, but at the same time, it's like, family man.
Yep.
And this is my life, and I get to just turn off and just focus on
Yep.
this and just pay attention to what's mine.
Yep.
And I don't have to worry about this.
For sure.
I started to realize that with like some friends, like some old friends I used to have that I'm like, you know, I haven't talked to them in a while. And I started to feel like this almost guilt, like, oh, dude, I should invite them over. Or I should do that. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? No. My responsibility is not to them.
Right.
Just because I said we're friends,
Right.
which I still, hey, you need me, I'll do my best to be there. But I'm a dad and I'm a husband, and that is more important.
This is my allotted time during the day.
Yeah.
I have 24 hours. I have responsibilities as far as work.
Yep.
You know, and then the priorities start shifting. Yes, I have friends and I need to nurture those relationships as well. But I have this over here now.
Yeah.
I started this family, and that's time, effort, attention, energy. It kind of goes into that. And what's cool is the kids start to get older, and you'll find this too. And you can start including him on some of those things. Because before, when they're young, it's like, okay, I have to go outside. I have to get this chicken coop built. I have to do this or whatever. And yes, that's something that needs to be done.
Uh-huh.
But when they're young, sometimes it takes away time from them too. Now that they're getting older, it's like, hey, Ava, let Dad show you how to run this drill.
Yeah.
We'll do this together.
Yeah.
You know, hey, Isabella, you know, let's build this play set together.
Yep.
You know, let's do these things together. You know, and it just starts that natural culmination, and that's why I like having a place that's not in town, that's got a little bit to it. Because you just naturally nurture those types of relationships. The gardening and stuff. I mean, my wife heads up a lot of that gardening stuff, the flowers. She's really good at that and really astute in that area. So I get to be the helper in that aspect. But it's natural and organic time together.
Yeah.
You know, while accomplishing things for the future. You know, we got a little bit of. I mean, we're not off grid, but you know, we
But still.
a lot of our produce.
Yeah.
You know, we have our own venison. You know.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, David, for helping me do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just that's kind of what life is now, and it's great. It's slowed down a little bit.
Right.
It's like you mentioned, fostering. We've done that for 10 years, and I think that's kind of coming to a natural end there. And we'll look for, you know, we're always looking for other ways to serve and give back and be a part of something, because I think it's important. It's important to do things that feel meaningful to you.
Oh, of course.
And give you a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
All who wander are not lost. But,
Yeah.
If you just spend your whole time wandering, it's not very fruitful.
Yes, you're an idiot. But yeah. Well, that's the life of William Millard the third.
The third.
The third. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking the time to do this.
Reminiscent.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's great. And like I said, I couldn't think of a better person for the first episode, because it was like,
I got a story.
you got stories on stories. I mean, who knows? This could be just part one with
but there might have to be a part two somewhere.
Yeah. Because there's
We
a
threw in the
lot
chat.
of stuff we could throw in there.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Love you. You have a good day.
You too.
It's going to be fun.